Your mind is entering a calmer space.
Settle down. Your mind is clearing. Only calm remains.
Night settles over York 1387, and you stand in the narrow lane behind Stonegate, where the scent of wet timber mixes with wood smoke drifting from crooked chimneys. Lanterns sway in the wind, their orange halos trembling across puddles left by an afternoon rain. Merchants shutter their stalls, apprentices hurry home, and a trio of women in wool cloaks linger near the public well, whispering about tomorrow's market and the gossip that always clings to it. You step closer, the cold pressing against your cheeks, and you feel that familiar flutter of anticipation, because tonight marks the start of your full immersion into the world of medieval beauty, and the expectations here are as rigid as winter frost. The women glance at you, one laughs softly, as if to say you probably won't survive this. Prepare yourself. The beauty standards you're about to face do not care about your comfort, your pause, or your modern skincare routine. You're entering the era where pale skin means status, where a fresh glow is achieved with ground bone and rancid fat, and where a bad hair day is practically a social scandal. If you're ready for this medieval beauty challenge as the full version, hit that like button, settle deeper under your blanket and brace your soul. Tell me where you're watching from and what time it is. I want to know which modern corner of the world is about to suffer through these ancient routines. Now take a breath, steel your courage, and let's begin this long, exhausting transformation. The muddy lane fades behind you as you step inside a dim timber-framed house, lit by tallow candles whose smell hits you before the warmth does. Their smoky sweetness clings to everything, your hair, your clothes, probably even your dreams. A woman named Mary, your host for the evening, ushers you inside and gestures toward a small table where a basin of cold well water waits. Her tone leaves no room for argument. Beauty here does not wait for your morning mood. It begins now, before bed, because medieval skin requires constant vigilance, or so they insist. You lean over the basin, feeling the chill of the water on your fingertips. A scrap of linen rests beside it, rough, pilled, and possibly older than you. Mary tells you to dip it in ash water first, then rub your cheeks with it until they tingle. She says it keeps the skin bright. What she means is that it strips away oils with a ferocity that would make a dermatologist weep. As you scrub, you catch her nodding approvingly, as though you've just proven yourself minimally competent and not in fact someone who moisturizes twice daily like a spoiled time traveller. Around you, the room murmurs with nighttime sounds. The crack of settling beams, a distant dog barking, the soft clink of iron pots cooling near the hearth, and through it all, Mary narrates your initiation. She explains that medieval beauty is not about indulgence, it is obligation. Woman's face can signal her character, her humility, her worth. A pale glow means you're not a field labourer. Unblemished skin shows discipline. And if you have the misfortune of a spot on your nose, good luck surviving the commentary at church. You glance at the door, suddenly understanding why everyone in this century prays so much. They're begging for clear skin. Still wiping your cheeks, now flushed from friction and shame, you listen as Mary continues describing the ideal complexion. Smooth, pale, and soft enough that a husband could boast about it. You resist the urge to mumble something about modern independence, but honestly, you're too busy trying not to lose feeling in your face because that linen cloth was definitely not washed this week, or month. As you straighten, Mary brings out a tiny wooden bowl filled with mashed chickpeas. She mixes in a drizzle of vinegar and a pinch of powdered rosemary, explaining that the paste prevents breakouts. You wonder privately how anyone avoids breakouts in an era without plumbing, but you keep that thought to yourself. Mary dips 2 fingers into the bowl and smears the mixture across your cheeks. Temperature, cold, texture, lumpy, smell, vaguely like you've lost a battle with a salad. While it sets, she walks you through the rigid hierarchy of beauty expectations that governs daily life. Peasant women might do little more than rinse their faces with cold water when they can, but women of towns like York, they are watched, judged, whispered about with enthusiasm that borders on recreational sport. A dull complexion can signal illness or poverty. Too much colour on the cheeks can suggest moral deficiency. And if your eyebrows aren't shaped properly, prepare for side-eye that could cut rope. She leans in as she says this, raising her own brows dramatically, or rather, the thin arcs that remain of them. Plucking is not a hobby, it's a civic duty. She assures you that your turn is coming soon. You suddenly wish you'd stayed in the muddy lane with the flickering lanterns and mind your own business darkness. The paste dries quickly on your skin, cracking slightly as you shift your jaw. Mary instructs you to rinse it off with fresh water. The basin is now even colder than before, as if the water has absorbed the indifference of medieval winters. You splash your face, flinching at the temperature, while Mary murmurs that beauty requires suffering. She says it in a tone soft enough to be soothing, but sincere enough to be alarming. After you pat your face dry, the linen is somehow rougher this time. Mary gestures to a small hand mirror made of polished metal. It reflects a slightly warped, shadowy version of yourself. Your cheeks are pink from scrubbing, your skin tighter than you'd like, and a small breadcrumb of chickpea paste clings to your jawline like a forgotten insult. Mary brushes it off with affectionate judgment and moves on. The lessons spill. Forward. How noble women protect their skin with veils. How merchants' wives patchily apply flour to mattify their faces. How girls whisper tips at market stalls as if sharing ancient secrets instead of household ingredients that barely work. You learn how heavily women's reputations rest on the appearance of health and cleanliness, even when neither is realistically achievable. Then Mary lifts a candle and brings you to the corner of the room where a small chest stands. She opens it, revealing jars and packets of herbs, oils and powders. Some are fragrant, some smell like despair. She explains each one as though reciting sacred scripture. Lavender for calmness, sage for clarity, honey for shine, but only if warmed so it spreads thinly and doesn't make you smell like a dessert being hunted by bees. She hands you a pot of egg white cream meant to tighten the skin. You dab some onto your forehead, noticing immediately that it feels like applying glue. Mary nods approvingly. Apparently medieval beauty is one part aspiration, one part adhesive. As the night deepens, she walks you further through the expectations of the medieval day-to-day routine. A woman rising at dawn must wash quickly, conceal any imperfections, comb her hair thoroughly, bind it neatly, and present herself as if she has slept peacefully, even if she has spent half the night tending to children, animals, or a fire that refuses to stay lit. Beauty is not optional. It is proof of discipline, proof of morality, proof of a woman's place and usefulness in the world. Mary pauses, studying your expression as though weighing your chances of survival in this era. She gives you a small smile, the kind that says, "You'll learn. You're not entirely convinced." You help her extinguish the candles one by one, their smoke spiralling upward in lazy threads. The house grows darker, softer, warmer. The last glow comes from the hearth, where embers pulse like sleepy fireflies. You sink onto a straw-filled mattress, your skin taut, your hair smelling faintly of smoke and rosemary, your mind buzzing with the realization that medieval beauty isn't simply a routine, it's a daily performance with an unforgiving audience. As Mary settles beside her daughter across the room, she murmurs one last piece of advice. Whatever tomorrow brings, start early. Beauty is a race you will never finish, but must always run. You lie back, staring into the shadows, letting the medieval world close in around you, its demands, its scents, its expectations, and for a moment, you wonder whether anyone in this era ever truly rests. Dawn drags itself over York with the enthusiasm of an exhausted mule, and you're hauled into wakefulness by the sound of a neighbour's rooster, announcing its personal vendetta against human sleep. The room is still dim, though a faint grey glow seeps through the shutter slats. Your face feels tight from last night's paste, and when you touch your cheek, it's as if your skin has become parchment, stretched too far over a drum. Medieval beauty 1, you 0. Before you can gather your thoughts, Mary nudges your shoulder with the urgency of someone who considers punctual grooming a moral obligation. Up, she whispers, already wrapping a shawl around her shoulders. The light won't wait for you. You briefly wonder what light has to do with anything since your reflection still looks like a painting someone spilled water on, but you push yourself upright anyway. Your first task is simple on paper. Cleanse your face. But medieval simple is not your kind of simple. Mary hands you the morning basin, and it is somehow colder than last night's water, as if the bowl spent the night contemplating how best to ruin your morning. Steam rises from the hearth, but none of it seems willing to acknowledge your face. You brace yourself and splash. The shock sends a sharp inhale through your chest, the kind you didn't expect to experience before breakfast. Mary approves. She places beside you the day's exfoliant, crushed walnut shells mixed with water until it resembles gritty sludge. You look at her, then at the mixture, then at your modern delicate paws that are definitely filing a complaint. But she raises a brow, the medieval version of stop whining, everyone does this. You scoop a bit onto your fingers and massage it across your cheeks. The grit drags against your skin with impressive hostility. Within seconds, you're certain you have removed not only dead skin, but some living parts you probably needed. Mary nods while stoking the fire, which, frankly, feels like a slight betrayal. A woman encouraging this level of sanding should at least offer emotional support. As you scrub, she explains that morning cleansing is essential for keeping skin clear, especially with all the smoke, grease and airborne debris floating through medieval homes. You glance around just as a puff of chimney soot decides to prove her point by drifting down in your direction. You have a newfound respect for anyone in this century with even passably clean skin. When you rinse, the water runs cloudy with tiny walnut fragments. Mary hands you a linen cloth to dry your face again. This one is slightly less abrasive, though still not something you'd ever pay money for. As you pat your cheeks, she inspects your progress like a master craftsman evaluating a piece of pottery. Better, she declares. You decide to take that as a compliment, even though your cheeks feel like they've been attacked by a species of extremely determined ants. Next comes the herbal wash. Mary mixes marigold petals, rosemary and mint into warm water, creating a fragrant infusion. She tells you nobles prefer rosewater, but the cost of roses is as high as the expectations placed on them. You inhale deeply, appreciating the scent that finally smells like something you'd willingly apply to your body. She pours a small amount onto your palms, and you gently press it into your skin, relieved at the softness. This is the closest thing to a spa moment medieval England is willing to offer you. Enjoy it while it lasts, because Mary then presents the next tool, a coarse wool pad meant for stimulating circulation. You're unconvinced that circulation requires stimulation via medieval sandpaper, but she demonstrates by rubbing it across her own jaw in firm, sweeping motions. Her skin turns rosy immediately. You imagine yours would turn that bright shade you get when you run too close to an angry goose. Still, you mimic her motions, feeling the wool drag across your cheeks. It's not pleasant, but it does warm your skin. Mary says it helps keep the complexion lively and prevents dullness. A mortal sin in this society. You wonder how anyone had time to be dull with all the circling gossip and relentless chores, but you don't argue. When she decides you've rubbed enough, she wipes your face with a warm cloth, which feels like a hug from the universe after what you've just endured. Finally, the cleansing routine transitions into protection. Mary brings out a small ceramic pot. Inside is a pale, creamy substance made from goose fat mixed with melted beeswax. You tilt your head, politely waiting for the part where she explains this is not for your face, but it is. It seals the skin, she says, dabbing some onto her fingertip, keeps the wind from cracking it. Wind in this era is apparently stronger, meaner, and more personally vindictive than your modern understanding allows. You close your eyes as Mary pats the greasy mixture across your cheeks and forehead. Within moments, you realise two things. 1. Your skin feels like a buttered loaf of bread. 2. You smell faintly like a roasted goose. She claims the scent fades. You're not sure it will fade from your memory, but that's not what she means. As you wait for it to absorb, the long medieval version of dry down time, Mary explains that many women add herbs or floral oils to mask the greasy smell. Today she chooses lavender, smearing a drop onto your temples. The combination of lavender and goose fat is unique, but you inhale and accept your fate. This is beauty. You are enduring it. The house grows livelier as Mary's daughter wakes, shuffling toward the hearth with hair like a pile of straw undergoing a windstorm. Even she doesn't escape the routine. Mary hands her a basin and expects her to scrub with the same determination you demonstrated moments ago. Misery loves company, and you find a strange comfort watching a sleepy medieval teenager groan her way through exfoliation. While the girl works, Mary explains to you how social expectations start early. A girl must keep her face clean, her hair neat, her appearance gentle and modest. Neighbours judge mothers on their daughters' grooming, which is a level of societal pressure no one requested but everyone enforces. Mary hands you a small wooden bowl filled with warm milk and a dash of honey. If your skin reddens too much, she says, this soothes it. You dip your fingertips into the mixture and smooth it across your cheeks. It cools instantly, calming the heat left by the wool pad. The scent of honey is a relief compared to goose fat, though you now understand why medieval insects probably target people like flying judgment gremlins. As the fire crackles, Mary describes the more elaborate cleansing techniques available to wealthy women. Distilled waters made with violets or elderflowers, imported powders from Italy, even an early version of toner made from wine vinegar. You imagine noble women sniffing at your current mixture and blinking slowly, promising to pray for you. Meanwhile, you're here, smelling like a lavender-glazed poultry dish. Mary dips a comb into warm water and begins scraping it along her own skin, an alternative exfoliating method for days when walnut shells are scarce. The combing removes dirt and lifts fine hairs, leaving the skin smoother. She hands you a smaller comb and gestures for you to try. You drag it gently along your jawline. It feels strange, but not unpleasant. Almost like scratching an itch you didn't realise you had. She reminds you that grooming in the morning isn't just vanity, it prevents illness. Dirt and soot clog pores and trap bacteria, and an infection on the face can spread terrifyingly fast in a world without antibiotics. You nod, suddenly grateful for every pharmacy you've ever passed without appreciating its existence. The morning chill creeps between the wooden beams, prompting Mary to move quickly. She hands you a small bowl containing a clay mixture. Kaolin, she explains. Fine clay used for deep cleansing. She mixes it with water until it forms a thin paste, then smooths it across your forehead. It cools instantly. You add some to your cheeks, feeling the clay tighten as it dries. This, at last, feels like something you recognise. A medieval face mask minus the cucumber slices. While it dries, she talks you through the expected daily grooming rhythm. Cleanse, exfoliate, tone, grease, set hair, dress with care, present yourself. Repeat until the end of time or until your husband commends you for looking appropriate, whichever comes first. You sit still, listening to doves cooing from a neighbouring rooftop. Outside, the town creaks awake, carts rolling, dogs barking, the soft murmur of voices in the lane. Inside, the clay cracks gently as it dries. Mary hands you a warm cloth to wipe it away. Your skin feels smooth, warm, and oddly alive, as if you've woken up from inside your face. Last come the finishing touches. Mary sprinkles a few drops of rosemary water into your palms. You pat it lightly over your skin, inhaling the sharp herbal scent. It refreshes your senses and disguises the lingering ghost of goose fat. Mary studies you for a long moment, then gives a single approving nod. Clean, she says. You made it through the morning cleansing routine. You might be slightly exfoliated into another century, but you're glowing, possibly from inflammation, but glowing nonetheless. Outside, footsteps pass by the window. The day is calling, and so are the expectations that come with it. Ready or not, you step forward into the medieval morning, face polished to an era-appropriate shine. Mary doesn't give you even a heartbeat of recovery time before she pivots fully into the next ordeal: hair. In medieval England, hair is its own battlefield. Long, heavy, easily tangled, constantly assaulted by smoke, wind, sweat, and the occasional lice uprising. Yours, at the moment, smells faintly of last night's hearthfire and feels stiff at the ends, as though it's been quietly judging you while you slept. You sit near the window where the early light spills in pale and watery. Mary draws up a three-legged stool and gestures for you to take your place. Her daughter plops onto the floor with resigned familiarity, already tugging apart her own knots with a cheap wooden comb. It squeaks ominously with every pull. That squeak is the medieval soundtrack to personal grooming, a reminder that the day will not pamper you. Mary opens a small box containing the tools of this morning's torture: bone combs polished from use, a wooden comb with widely spaced teeth, and a smaller, fine-toothed comb meant specifically for removing surprises. You know what that means. You swallow. Hair must be long, Mary says, matter-of-fact, as she begins to work. And long hair must be tended. You brace as the wide-toothed comb meets your scalp. The first pass isn't bad, surprisingly gentle, but the second catches a knot and pulls your head backward with the sort of force usually reserved for tugging ropes on docks. Mary murmurs an apology that you're fairly certain she does not mean. To distract you, she launches into an explanation of medieval hair ideals. For women, hair is a symbol of youth, of health, of obedience, of femininity shaped by both church doctrine and social expectation. Loose hair signals youth or immodesty depending on context. Covered hair signals virtue. Elaborately braided hair often indicates wealth, patience, or the presence of at least 2 dedicated servants. You think of your own morning routine back home: spritz of leave-in conditioner, quick detangle, maybe a bun, and you laugh quietly. Mary mistakes your laugh for a wince and tuts sympathetically, though she does not slow down. She dips the comb into warm water scented with rosemary. The water shines slightly, revealing a thin layer of oil floating on top. Olive oil, precious and rationed. She tells you it smooths the hair and protects it from dryness. When she drags the comb through again, the movement is easier, smoother, almost pleasant. Almost. After several minutes of vigorous combing, your hair begins to soften under her hands. She lifts a clay pot from the table and opens it. Inside is a pale, glossy mixture of egg yolk and honey. She announces, with no hesitation and no warning, conditioner. You blink slowly. Conditioner. The kind that lives rent-free in your shower caddy and smells like tropical fruits. No. Medieval conditioner is sticky, smells faintly like breakfast, and must be diluted with warm water before being combed in. She mixes a little with water in a bowl, then dips her fingers in and draws the mixture through the strands of your hair. Warmth spreads across your scalp. Your hair drinks in the treatment greedily, perhaps because it has just lived through a walnut shell facial and feels sorry for your head. Once combed through, the ends of your hair look shiny. A miracle. Mary looks satisfied. She declares that this regimen prevents breakage if done regularly. You do not have the heart to tell her that egg yolk tends to cook if exposed to too much heat, and your head is uncomfortably close to the fire. Still, your hair feels softer, smoother, and more alive than it did when you woke. Mary ties a cloth beneath your collar to protect your garment, then sets you to work on something far less glamorous: the lice check. She calls it preventative vigilance. You call it a violation of your personal peace. She hands you the fine comb, a brutal instrument designed to catch every microscopic stowaway lurking near the scalp. You drag it down from crown to nape, feeling its tight teeth scrape lightly over your skin. It's not painful, but it demands attention. Mary inspects the comb after each stroke with the seriousness of a customs officer, searching for contraband. She finds nothing, nods once and says you're fortunate. You silently thank every modern convenience you've ever taken for granted. After the inspection, she instructs you to part your hair neatly. Centre part if you want to look modest, side part if you want to look fashionable, slight zigzag part if you want to appear particularly well groomed. You choose the modest one because you're still recovering from the walnut shells and not emotionally prepared for additional scrutiny. With your part established, Mary moves to the next disaster zone, flyaways. Modern flyaway solutions, serum, hairspray, smoothing creams, medieval flyaway solutions, spit, water or goose fat. You sense a theme emerging. Mercifully, Mary chooses water. She presses her damp fingers along your hair, gliding them down from root to end. The hair settles obediently. Next comes oiling. She pours a tiny amount of scented almond oil into her palm, a treasure imported through trade, used sparingly. She rubs her hands together and smooths the oil lightly along the ends of your hair. The scent is subtle and sweet, instantly calming. Even after your immense exfoliation earlier, this moment feels grounding, familiar, like a universal truth. No matter the century, a little oil on the ends makes a world of difference. Mary explains the importance of braiding. Braided hair stays clean longer, avoids tangles and signals discipline. Unbraided hair suggests disorder, either moral or domestic, neither of which is desirable. She divides your hair into two sections, weaving each one slowly, carefully, as though stitching a tapestry. Her fingers are strong but gentle, and the braid feels secure without being tight. She ties the ends with wool threads dyed with crushed nettles. Green suits you, she says. You believe her, though the threads itch slightly against your neck. Her daughter, meanwhile, finishes her own braiding routine and begins heating a small amount of wax near the hearth. She uses it to smooth her braids further, pressing them flat so they hold their shape. When she offers you a dab as well, Mary shakes her head. Too much wax weighs the hair, she warns. Only use it for festivals. You smile. Imagine that. Special event styling products. As the final step, Mary shows you a length of soft linen. This is for wrapping the hair at night and during morning chores. It keeps soot away, preserves braids and signals modesty when worn in public. You practice wrapping it twice, fumbling through the folds until Mary adjusts the knot for you. The linen fits snugly, warm but not uncomfortable. Then she instructs you to unwrap it again because you're not going anywhere yet. The lesson isn't finished. She brings out a wooden paddle brush studded with boar bristles. It looks like the missing ancestor of your modern hairbrush. She demonstrates by brushing through the ends of your braids to ensure they lie flat. You copy her motions, surprised by how soothing the repetitive strokes feel. Mary moves into a brief lecture on hair cleanliness. Contrary to popular belief, medieval people do not ignore hygiene entirely. They wash their hair, just not daily. Shampooing usually involves a mixture of herbs boiled in water, sometimes combined with stale ale. You shudder at the thought of smelling like a tavern barrel, but Mary assures you it leaves the hair soft and surprisingly shiny. Some households even use lye soap, harsh, drying, and guaranteed to leave your scalp tingling in a way no product ever should. She recommends herbal washes instead, and you silently thank her. You ask if hair dye exists, and she nods. Henna for warmth, walnut hulls for darker tones, saffron for golden highlights, a luxury that only the wealthy can afford because saffron costs more than your current self-esteem. She mentions that some women try to lighten their hair with ashes and sun exposure, but warns it can dry the strands severely. You glance toward the window where the sun grows stronger. No thank you. Mary lifts your braid and inspects it again. She gives a rare, genuine smile. Strong, she says. Healthy. You did it. You have survived the medieval morning hair care routine, and your scalp remains mostly intact. Miracles do happen. The final stage of this ordeal is styling for the day. Mary shows you how to coil the braids around the back of your head, securing them with wooden pins carved with small floral motifs. The shape is neat, modest, and practical. You feel oddly elegant, like a portrait subject from a manuscript margin, minus the goose fat. She presses your shoulders, guiding you upright. A woman's hair, she says, tells the world how she lives. You're beginning to understand what she means. Clean, orderly hair isn't just beauty, it's status, resourcefulness, discipline, social currency woven into every strand. The morning light slips across the floorboards as Mary steps back and evaluates her work. She nods once, satisfied. Your hair is ready. Your face is ready. The world outside is not. You stand, linen threads grazing your neck, braids tight and smooth, feeling strangely connected to women who did this exact routine centuries before you. And just when you think the lesson is over, Mary taps your shoulder. Now, she says with a tiny knowing smile, we handle the eyebrows. You inhale sharply. The challenge continues. Mary does not bother softening the moment. She does not offer comfort, reassurance, or even a token joke to lighten what is about to happen. She simply reaches for a small leather pouch, loosens its drawstring, and spills its contents onto the table. Tweezers, a curved razor, a piece of pumice, 2 tiny pots of powder, and a strip of linen so thin and delicate it looks like it's been used to bandage saints. Your stomach drops. Medieval eyebrow grooming is not a gentle art. It is an unyielding pursuit of a very specific, very unforgiving aesthetic. A high forehead is fashionable. A dramatically high forehead is ideal. A forehead so lofty it practically gleams under candlelight, that is perfection. And guess what helps create that look? Less eyebrow, and sometimes less hairline. Mary picks up the tweezers, 2 slender metal pieces joined in the centre, pinched together at the ends. They look harmless, until she tests them on her own wrist with a little snick that makes your soul leave your body for half a second. She pats the stool. You sit because you have not forgotten the walnut shells and the goose fat and the lye soap alternatives. Clearly resistance is futile. Hold still, she murmurs, brushing her thumb along your brow bone. The gesture is unexpectedly tender, which somehow makes it worse. A woman must show refinement. You briefly consider telling her that shaved brows and bleached brows become trends again in your timeline, but she's already plucking. The first hair rips free with a tight, biting sting. Your spine stiffens. Mary does not flinch. Good roots, she comments, plucking again with terrifying efficiency. Strong hair. You don't know if that's a compliment, but you choose to assume it is, because the alternative is panicking. She shapes your brow into a thinner, softer arc. Medieval ideal. Not too thin, not too bold, not too expressive. If brows are windows to the soul, medieval England prefers small windows with shutters firmly closed. Mary leans closer, evaluating, plucking, re-evaluating. Every time her brows pinch together, you brace yourself for another round. Her daughter peeks over from the hearth, smirks sympathetically, and then returns to her chore of stirring porridge. She has clearly witnessed this pain many times. When Mary steps back, you exhale in relief. Too soon, unfortunately. She picks up the pumice stone. Oh no. This smooths the edge, she explains casually, as if preparing to exfoliate your facial bone. She presses the stone lightly along your brolin in short, brisk strokes. The sensation is like an extremely determined cat licking your forehead. You endure it, because you have officially resigned yourself to the fact that this day has no mercy. Once satisfied, she dips her fingers into one of the small pots. The powder inside is a mixture of ground bone and crushed herbs, a brightening agent. She dusts it along your newly shaped brow area, muttering something about purity of complexion and clarity beneath the veil. The powder clings to your skin with soft chalkiness. You resist the urge to sneeze. Then Mary studies your hairline. You feel it before she says anything, that prickling sense of dread. Panic creeping up like a draft under the door. Your forehead is modest, she says diplomatically. That's medieval code for, it's not big enough. She gestures toward the razor, a small blade with one curved edge that has absolutely no business approaching your face. You shake your head instinctively. She gives you a patient smile. Only a few hairs, just here. She touches the edge of your hairline, the exact area where you prefer hair to remain, permanently, Medieval fashion says otherwise. Before you can negotiate, she dips the razor in warm water, wipes it clean, and brings it toward your temples. She works with delicacy, shaving a few wisps so your forehead appears slightly larger. You sit rigid as a carved saint, grateful she stops after only a small adjustment. When she steps back again, she nods in satisfaction. She doesn't mention that your dignity has taken light damage. Now the finish. She opens the second pot, one containing finely milled wheat starch mixed with ground alabaster. Pale powder drifts into the air as she taps some onto her fingertips. She presses it along your brow bone and the upper forehead, blending it into your skin until it gives the appearance of heightened, luminous whiteness. This isn't makeup, it's social armour. With the brows completed, she moves on to your lashes. Medieval lashes are not meant to be dramatic, but clean and well ordered. She hands you a small brush carved from stiff bristles and instructs you to comb downward gently. The fibres separate and neaten your lashes in a way that feels oddly soothing. Then she dips the tip of her finger into a very faintly tinted ash mixture and draws it along the lash line, giving a subtle shadow, just enough to frame the eyes, just enough to say, "I'm refined," without saying, "I'm trying." While you work, Mary explains the role of eyebrows and foreheads in social signalling. A high forehead indicates intelligence, virtue, and nobility. And since nobility is unattainable for most, women imitate the look. Peasant women do less grooming, either because they lack the time or because they have resigned themselves to the practicality of having hair where hair naturally grows. You do not have that luxury today. Mary takes your hands briefly and holds them away from your face. Do not touch, she warns. Oil from the fingers will ruin the powder. You nod obediently, though a small part of you wonders how long it will take before you scratch your forehead without thinking. She wraps a soft cloth around your shoulders and moves behind you. With a small brush, she dusts away stray powder from your cheeks. The room fills with tiny particles that catch the light like faint mist. Then she picks up the mirror, the same warped metal disc from last night, and holds it up for you. Your eyebrows are thinner, cleaner, shaped to a faint noble curve. Your forehead seems taller. Powder softens the edges of your expression. You look medieval, strange, familiar, slightly bewildered, but undeniably on trend for 1387. Mary seems pleased. You could walk into any church, she says, and no one would whisper. You take that as the highest praise available. She lifts the linen head wrap again, not to hide your grooming, but to complete it. She tucks it gently behind your ears, leaving your newly shaped brows visible but framed. Then Mary steps back and studies you with the focused eye of someone who has spent years navigating the exact balance between vanity and virtue. Good, she says softly. Very good. You almost believe her, until she reaches for a tiny jug of vinegar. What's that for? You ask, instantly on edge. She smiles, toning the forehead. Vinegar, on your freshly shaved hairline. You brace yourself as she dabs it along your upper brow bone and temples using the thin linen strip. The sting is sharp but fleeting, and Mary explains that it closes the pores and keeps stray hairs from growing too quickly. You suspect she might be lying but lack the courage to challenge her. When she finishes, she pats your cheek tenderly, the universal sign for you survived. Outside, the town bells begin to ring, signalling that morning work is officially underway. You inhale slowly, adjusting to the sensation of your newly sculpted brows. They feel foreign yet strangely empowering, like secret medieval superpowers you did not ask for but now possess. Mary gathers her tools, tucks them back into the leather pouch and sighs contentedly. Your face, she says, is ready for the world. Your soul, your nerves, your hairline, less ready, but you stand anyway, stepping forward into the medieval day with a brow shape that could absolutely get you married off to someone with land. If only the rest of the beauty challenges were this simple. Mary gives you a moment to stretch your face, which now feels tighter, smoother, and more exposed than it ever has in your adult life, before she sweeps you directly into the next trial, complexion lightening. If medieval beauty routines have a crown jewel, this is it. Pale skin is not just preferred, it's revered, idealized, practically worshipped. A pale face signals gentility, leisure, protection from the harsh world of labour. It says, I do not toil outside, I am delicate, I am virtuous, I am indoor-scented. It also says, I'm willing to apply things to my face that would make a modern dermatologist clutch their chest and fall straight to the floor. Mary retrieves a wooden tray from a shelf above the hearth. On it sit several pots, each sealed with waxed cloth. She spreads them out carefully, one filled with chalky powder, one with a thick pale paste, one with a mixture so metallic it seems to shimmer faintly even in the dim morning light. That shimmering one is extremely suspicious. You now understand why medieval women sometimes developed mystery ailments, and the cause is currently sitting on your lap, gleaming like a tiny pot of danger. Mary sits across from you and folds her hands, adopting the tone of someone discussing matters of life, death, and pause. Your face is clean, your brows are fresh. Now we turn to your colour. Your colour at the moment is a slightly anxious pink. Medieval society desires skin that looks untouched by sun, work, emotion, or hardship. A complexion like vellum parchment, a complexion that says, I definitely do not have 20 responsibilities before breakfast. You have already failed that last one, but Mary doesn't judge. She simply lifts the first pot. This one is harmless, she says. You immediately assume that means the next ones are not. Inside the pot is a powder made from ground eggshells mixed with flour and a pinch of orris root. It smells faintly sweet, the first encouraging moment of the morning. She dips a soft linen cloth into the powder and pats it along your cheeks. The powder settles into your skin, blurring any remaining redness from the walnut shell exfoliation. A light scent rises from your skin. Floral, dry, soothing. Your complexion instantly appears brighter. Mary tilts your chin gently, assessing. Better, she says. But better is just the beginning. She reaches for the second pot. The thick paste inside is chalky white, speckled with tiny flecks of crushed herbs. This is for smoothing, she explains, but only a little. She takes a small dab and spreads it across your jawline, blending it with practiced ease. It feels cool, almost creamy. You breathe easier. Perhaps you will survive this. Then she opens the third pot. Ah, the shimmering one. It's pale, slightly metallic, thick. You lean away instinctively. Mary places a firm hand on your shoulder and says the phrase no medieval beauty student wants to hear. Hold still. This mixture, she explains, gives brightness. Nobles use it. Townswomen use it when they must make impressions, but too much. She pauses, letting the silence fill in the warning. Too much is not good for the health. Congratulations. The pot on your lap contains what is essentially an early form of lead-based cosmetic. A beauty shortcut with consequences. You think of every modern warning about heavy metals, then think of the walnut shells from earlier. Today is apparently about challenging your trust in historical skincare routines. Mary dips only the tiniest tip of her finger into the paste and taps it gently onto your cheekbones. The shimmer catches the light in a soft, subtle way. Enough, she says. You exhale with relief that she used only a whisper of it. She seals the pot quickly, as though even the air should not linger near it too long. With the dangerous part done, she moves on to safer, greener pastures. Literally. She opens a jar containing crushed parsley mixed with goat's milk. This is for dark spots, she explains, and sun blotches. She applies a thin layer beneath your jawline where faint shadows reside. It smells fresh and earthy. Unlike the metallic paste, this one feels like exactly what your skin wanted. Next comes a honey and vinegar blend, used sparingly across your chin and forehead. You wrinkle your nose at the sharp scent, but Mary assures you the combination tightens the skin and keeps it clear. You mentally thank your modern cleansers, missing them like old friends. Then she reaches for another powder pot, this one filled with ground white clay. She mixes it with a few drops of water until it forms a spreadable paste. With a wooden spatula, she smooths it across the sides of your face. The clay cools instantly, calming the earlier stinging from the vinegar. You feel your skin relax. If skin can relax after being exfoliated, shaved, powdered, and toned within a single morning. As you sit still, Mary explains how women across England achieve the coveted pale look in different ways. Wealthy women use imported cosmetics, often from Italy, powders made of silver, alabaster, or finely milled rice. Middle-class women use mixtures like the ones she's applied to you. Poorer women dust their faces with flour or chalk, sometimes mixing it with lard to help it adhere. No matter the method, the goal is the same: complexion that announces you do not work the fields. As Mary talks, she dabs lightly at your temples with a cloth dipped in lavender water. The coolness eases the tightening clay and adds a pleasant scent to your newly powdered skin. She presses the final strokes with a kind of reverence, as though sculpting the face you will show to the world. Once the clay dries, she wipes it away with gentle motions, revealing a paler, smoother complexion beneath. It is startling, the difference subtle yet unmistakable. You no longer look like someone who spent the morning battling goat fat and vinegar. You look like someone who has never once emptied a chamber pot. Mary nods with satisfaction, but she isn't finished. She pulls a final pot from the tray, a jar filled with powdered ground lily root. "This lightens," she says, "softens the tone." She plies it with a small brush, sweeping across your cheeks and forehead in careful arcs. The effect is delicate, a whisper of brightness that catches on the high points of your face. When she finally sets the brush down, she places her hands on your shoulders and steps aside so you can face the mirror. The metal disc still warps the reflection slightly, but even through the distortion, you see it. Your complexion is noticeably lighter, soft, matte, powdered into medieval perfection. You look like someone who has strong opinions about embroidery and absolutely no intention of tanning. Mary studies you, her voice softening. You carry the glow well. You can't afford to disagree with her. She still has access to the pumice. Before letting you stand, she takes a final cloth and dusts away any excess powder that's settled around your neckline. The room fills with a faint cloud of herbal fragrance. Her daughter approaches with a small pot of tinted balm made from crushed rose petals and beeswax. "For warmth," she says. Mary hesitates. Too much colour defeats the purpose of lightening, but allows a very soft dab at the inner cheeks. Just enough to suggest vitality without sacrificing status. The final effect is a balance of pale brightness with a whisper of health. A delicate, curated look perfect for the medieval ideal. Mary folds her hands, satisfied. "Your face," she says, "could be noble." You smile, aware that smiling might crack the powder if done too aggressively. She gestures toward the door where sunlight filters through the slats. "Keep to the shade," she warns. "The sun will undo everything." You absolutely believe her. You now fear the sun like a fragile wax figurine near a campfire. But the next challenge awaits. A medieval beauty does not pause for admiration. As you rise, adjusting to the sensation of your new porcelain complexion, Mary gathers the pots with care. You step into the light cautiously, your face feeling both lighter and heavier at once. Lighter in colour, heavier with the responsibility of maintaining it. Outside, the world waits, and so does the next routine. The instant you step away from the table, Mary is already reaching for another bundle of tools, because in medieval England, having a freshly powdered, delicately brightened face is only half the battle. The next battlefield is inside your mouth. Teeth and breath may not appear on the illuminated manuscripts, but they absolutely appear in daily conversation, judgment, and marital negotiations. A bad smile can sink reputations faster than a leaky boat in the use. You barely have time to inhale your new lily root complexion before Mary places a wooden cup in your hands. Inside it floats something grey, something gritty, and something that smells aggressively herbal. You brace yourself. Medieval breath care is not famous for its gentleness. "This," Mary says, "is for rinsing." You swirl the cup gently, eyeing the mixture. "What's in it?" you ask. "Mint," she says. Relief washes over you like sunlight. And sage, still good. And vinegar, less good. And a little salt. Your optimism cracks. Salt? Vinegar? For your mouth? This keeps rot away, she adds, and strengthens the gums. Strengthens or burns? Sometimes those are the same thing. You lift the cup and take a cautious sip. The vinegar arrives first. Sharp, commanding, unforgiving. The mint follows, trying desperately to soften the blow. The salt lingers like an uninvited guest at the back of your tongue. You swish it dutifully, feeling every herb-tinged swirl, then lean over the basin to spit. Mary nods approvingly, as though you've just demonstrated admirable inner fortitude. Before you can recover, she hands you a small cloth pouch. It's lumpy, slightly dusty, and labelled with a faint charcoal symbol. Tooth powder, she says. We use it every morning. You open the pouch carefully. A fine cloud of dust rises. Greyish-white, slightly gritty, faintly sweet, faintly sour. You recognise crushed sage and mint again, but there's something else beneath it. Something harder. Ground bone, Mary explains, helps scrub. Of course it does. Today is apparently themed exfoliate everything. Skin, hairline, now enamel. She hands you a tiny scrap of linen twisted around a small stick. This is your toothbrush. It looks like something a toddler might use to stir mud. You dip the damp linen tip into the powder, watching as it gathers onto the fabric like flour on dough. Scrub every tooth, Mary says. Upward and downward. Never skip the back. You place the linen brush against your teeth and begin. The taste hits you immediately. Mint, yes, but also chalk, bone, herbs, and a faint graininess that feels like sand at the beach. It's not awful exactly, but it's definitely doing something. Medieval teeth cleaning doesn't aim for minty fresh breath so much as mechanical cleansing and bacteria warfare. As you scrub, Mary's daughter grins at you with a mouthful of her own tooth powder foam. She looks disturbingly comfortable. You suspect she's built up years of immunity. Mary watches your technique critically. Harder, she says, tapping your wrist. If you don't scrub firmly, food stays caught. You obey, despite the alarming sensation that you might sand down a tooth by accident. After several minutes, your mouth feels both extremely clean and slightly assaulted. You spit into the basin again, a splash of cloudy foam mixed with herbs and chalk. Mary hands you a cup of warm water. Rinse. Do not swallow. You rinse thoroughly. Twice. Maybe 3 times. You lose track. As you wipe your mouth, Mary reaches for another small pot. This one contains a dark, almost tar-like mixture. Your eyes widen. She notices. This is optional, she says lightly. To polish the teeth. Polish? With what? Charcoal, burnt rosemary, honey, and a little salt. She dips her fingertip into the mixture, rubs it between her fingers, then spreads a thin layer onto her own teeth, demonstrating a slow polishing motion. Her teeth darken slightly before she rinses it away, revealing a cleaner sheen beneath. You're not sure whether to be impressed or frightened. She gestures for you to try. You take the smallest possible dab and begin polishing. It's gritty but surprisingly effective. When you rinse, your teeth feel startlingly smooth. You run your tongue across them, shocked by the difference. Mary catches your expression and smiles. For once, a smile without critique. Clean teeth, she says, mean a clean spirit. That seems like a big promise for charcoal, but you appreciate the sentiment. Without warning, Mary reaches for a handful of herbs tied in a bundle with twine. She passes the bundle under your nose. The scent blooms like a small green explosion. Mint, thyme, rosemary, and something warm and sweet beneath it. She instructs you to chew a few leaves. You pluck a sprig of mint and place it in your mouth. The leaf crunches softly, releasing a bright, fresh flavour that temporarily erases the memory of bone powder and vinegar. It's the medieval equivalent of chewing gum, a natural breath freshener. Mary nods. Good. Now chew this. She hands you a small sliver of anise seed. You bite down, and your breath instantly transforms. Sweet, warm, slightly spicy. This keeps breath pleasant when speaking, she adds, especially with strangers. You imagine medieval people sizing each other up across church pews based solely on who smells like mint and who smells like cabbage soup. The stakes feel suddenly high. Mary isn't finished. She brings out a tiny linen-wrapped parcel and opens it to reveal what looks like tiny cinnamon pieces. It is, in fact, cinnamon. Imported. Expensive. Used sparingly. She allows you a single piece. You chew it gently, savouring the burst of warmth. Save the scent, she says. Do not wash your mouth too soon. You nod, holding the flavour carefully on your tongue like a secret treasure. Next comes gum care. Medieval gums are the battlefield where all breath problems are born. Good gums equal good breath. Neglected gums equal whispers behind your back. Mary hands you a soft stick, the end slightly frayed. Chewing stick, she says. Rub the gums gently. You place it along your gum line and begin rubbing in small circles. The motion is soothing, almost meditative. Mary explains that it keeps gums firm and prevents swelling. She demonstrates on her own mouth, using slow, practiced motions. When you're done, she nods approvingly and dips the stick into a small pot of honey mixed with salt. Just a little, she says, strengthens the gums. You apply a dab along the lower gums. The taste is sweet, then suddenly salty. You blink. Medieval people truly lived in a constant state of flavour confusion, and still, Mary is not done. She pulls forward one final item, a tiny bottle of clove-infused oil. The smell is warm, sharp, instantly recognisable. For pain, she says, and for breath. She dips the end of a linen-wrapped fingertip into the oil and touches your lower teeth with it. Instantly, a numbness spreads, gentle, tingling, soothing. If anything hurt before, it does not now. It's the closest thing medieval England has to dental anaesthesia, and breath mint, and mouth perfume, triple purpose. When she caps the bottle, she steps back and looks you over as though examining the results of an alchemical experiment. Your teeth feel polished, your gums feel firm. Your breath smells like mint, anise, honey, and clove had a meeting and all agreed to get along. Even your jaw feels lighter. You are prepared, Mary says softly. No one will turn away from your conversation today. You grin, cautiously because you fear cracking the powder still clinging to your complexion, and Mary laughs gently. Good, she says. A pleasant smile carries far. She packs the tools away and folds her hands. Outside the window, the morning hum of the town grows louder. Carts creaking along the street, a man calling out prices for early apples, the distant clang of the blacksmith beginning his work. Mary gestures toward the door. Your face is ready, she says. Your hair is ready. Your mouth is ready. Now. She glances toward the corner where small sachets and fragrant bundles hang from pegs. We handle the matter of scent. You swallow. The next trial awaits. Mary crosses. The room with the quiet authority of someone who has spent decades battling the unholy trifecta of medieval life. Limited bathing, smoky air, and the unending human ability to smell like whatever chore they just finished. Fragrance control is not a luxury here. It is survival. And although your teeth now smell like an apothecary's dream, and your complexion glows with alarming pallor, your scent still tells the truth. Smoke, wool, faint vinegar, and the lingering ghost of whatever goose-based substance has clung to your pores since dawn. Mary lifts a bundle of dried herbs from the wall, rosemary, lavender, sage, mint, tied together with twine. She doesn't offer explanation. She just thrusts them toward your nose. The bouquet is sharp, clean, comforting, and very obviously meant to replace the smell of hearth life. Scent, she says simply, is a message. In modern terms, medieval deodorant is about to happen. Mary gestures for you to follow her to a small corner where several bowls sit cooling near the hearth. Steam no longer rises from them, but warmth still lingers. She picks up the first bowl. Inside is a mixture of crushed rosemary, mint and vinegar steeped in warm water. This, she tells you, is not for drinking, thank heavens, but for wiping the body. She dips a soft cloth into the aromatic mixture and wrings it out. The smell bursts into the air like herbal fireworks. Lift your arms, she says. You comply, already predicting where this is going. She presses the warm cloth against your underarms. The sensation is startling at first. Warm, wet, sharply herbal, but then oddly refreshing. The mint cools your skin. The vinegar cuts through whatever smoke smell you acquired by merely existing inside a medieval home for more than 10 minutes. Rosemary lingers like a promise that you won't knock out innocent bystanders at market. As she wipes, Mary explains the reality of bathing. Full-body baths are rare, resource-heavy, and considered indulgent unless you are wealthy or ill. Most people perform what she calls parts washing, concentrating on areas most likely to betray you. You nod, resisting the urge to tell her that you personally enjoy indoor plumbing as a hobby. She hands you the cloth and gestures for you to continue. You dab at your chest, neck, the crooks of your elbows. The herbal mixture dries quickly, leaving your skin tingling and lightly perfumed. But Mary is far from finished. Next, she opens a wooden box holding small fabric pouches, sachets filled with crushed herbs, dried flowers, and sometimes spices. She hands you one. For the bodice, she says. You sniff it. Lavender and rose petals. A hint of dried thyme. Something sweet you can't quite place. Maybe clove. It smells far better than you expected, like a tiny floral secret. Women tuck these into their clothes, Mary explains, so the body carries pleasant air even when work. Makes it otherwise. You slip the sachet into the neckline of your chemise. The warmth of your skin releases the scent slowly. You feel faintly luxurious, like you've upgraded from smoke and goose fat to mystical herb garden. Mary retrieves another sachet and pinches it. This one, she says, is for the hair. She tucks it just behind your ear, securing it inside the linen head covering. The effect is immediate. Every small movement sends a whisper of lavender down your cheek. Next, she fetches a very small jar sealed with beeswax. When she opens it, a soft fragrance escapes. Floral, sweet, but with an earthy base. Perfumed oil, she says, for wrists, throat, and hair. You stare at the jar as if it holds forbidden treasure. In medieval terms, it sort of does. She dips her fingertip inside and touches a tiny drop to the inside of your wrist. It warms instantly, releasing notes of rose, chamomile, and something smoky from the drying process. She dabs another drop at the base of your neck. This helps mask smoke, she says, and sweat, and the scent of work. Then she hands you the jar. You rub a little between your palms and smooth it lightly over your braids. The fragrance blends with the natural scent of the almond oil Mary used earlier, creating something unexpectedly modern, warm, floral, herbal, balanced. If Sephora existed in 1387, this jar would be locked behind a counter. Mary places the jar back into its box, satisfied, but then she pulls out something more, primitive, a lemon. Well, half a lemon, you blink. Lemons are rare here, imported, expensive, special. Today, she says, you're fortunate. Rowena's cousin brought fruit from London. She presses the half lemon into your palm. Rub this on your hands. You hesitate, then obey. The juice sticks slightly but smells bright, sharp, and clean. Mary explains that wealthy women sometimes use citrus to freshen the skin and disguise the scent of oils or tallow. It also lightens the skin slightly, which is a bonus in a world where sun-kissed translates to peasant's work. When you finish, she wipes your hands with a lavender cloth, leaving the faintest hint of citrus behind. Mary's daughter brings forward another solution, a small bowl of warm ale infused with mint. You stare at it, terrified she might tell you to drink it, but she shakes her head. Hair refresher, she says. She dips a brush into the ale and taps it along the sides of your braids. The scent is surprisingly pleasant, minty, faintly sweet, slightly yeasty. Not exactly your ideal perfume, but significantly better than the smoky alternative. Not too much, Mary warns, or people will think you've been in a tavern. You nod gravely. You do not want to smell like a medieval pub on a Tuesday morning. Mary returns to her wall of herbs and removes a different bundle, one that looks dry and crumbly with darker leaves and stalks. Saturday mix, she says. Stronger. You raise a brow. bath day, she clarifies, or when you must impress someone important. She shakes the bundle lightly, and a dusting of herbal powder falls into a small bowl. She mixes it with warm water, creating a thick greenish liquid. It smells potent, sage, rue, wormwood, and something bitter that makes your eyes water. This masks anything, Mary says, even if you've worked near the smokehouse. She dips a cloth into the mixture and wipes it behind your neck and along your shoulders. The scent is powerful but oddly reassuring, like medieval deodorant with the confidence of a knight charging into battle. Once you're thoroughly wiped, dabbed, rubbed, brushed and perfumed, Mary steps back and surveys you. Her eyes soften, not with pity, but with approval. You smell ready, she says. You're not entirely sure what ready smells like, but you trust her judgment. She moves on to clothing-based fragrance. Medieval people use their outfits creatively. She fetches a small sachet filled with crushed lavender and tucks it into the folds of the linen wrap around your hair. Another sachet goes into the pocket of your apron. Another she ties with a string to hang beneath your outer gown. You carry your scent, she explains, so that wherever you walk, the air improves. That is shockingly one of the nicest compliments you've ever received. Finally, Mary shows you a small clay disc shaped like a flower. Incense stone, she says. It has been soaked in scented oils and dried. You warm it briefly near the hearth, then tuck it into the fabric folds of your sleeve. Its subtle fragrance drifts upward with your movements. Mary folds her arms, satisfied. You will walk past people, she says, and they will wonder how you smell so clean. Outside, the voices of townsfolk stir the morning air. Horses snort, children shriek. A baker calls out the first batch of bread. You inhale deeply, you smell layered, herbal, floral, warm, like someone who has access to more herbs than might strictly be necessary, but not enough water to indulge in a full bath, but certainly like someone who is trying, and in medieval England, trying is half the battle. Mary gives your shoulder a reassuring squeeze. Now that your scent is settled, she says, we must prepare your hands. You look down at them, clean, faintly lemon-scented, and still dusted lightly with chalk from your powdered face. She shakes her head as she leads you toward the next table. Hands, she declares. Tell the truth no face can hide. You swallow. The next ordeal begins. Mary leads you to the table by the window where the pale winter light spills in like a soft accusation. Your hands hover awkwardly in front of you, as though they already know they are about to be judged. And they are. Because in medieval England, hands are social documents. A glance at someone's fingers reveals their class, their labour, their habits, their hardships. A smooth hand says privilege, a rough hand says toil, and a cracked, neglected, soot-stained hand says you might as well sew unmarriageable onto your sleeve. Mary lifts your hands gently, turning them palm up, then palm down. She doesn't say anything, but she doesn't need to. Her expression makes it clear, your hands are fine, but they can be better. And in this century, better is the minimum standard. She reaches into a wooden chest and retrieves a small bowl of warm water infused with chamomile and marigold. The steam rising from the surface carries a faint floral sweetness. She places the bowl in front of you and gestures for you to submerge your hands. You slide them in, and the warmth blooms through your fingers, soothing the tension in your knuckles. After a morning of exfoliants, plucking, powders, and fragrance warfare, this feels almost sinful. Mary watches you with a knowing smile. Do not get used to this, she says softly. Warm water is for winter mornings and special care. Most days we use cold. You mentally cherish every second of heat while it lasts. As your hands soak, Mary explains the expectations surrounding medieval hand appearance. Women of nearly every status, except those in heavy labour, are expected to keep their hands soft, clean and presentable. Rough patches must be softened, nails must be neat, stains must be minimised. A woman who arrives at market with soot under her nails or clay embedded in her cuticles becomes the subject of gossip faster than you can say, Linen gloves. And yes, some women actually wear linen gloves indoors to prevent sunspots and smoke stains. You're beginning to understand why medieval beauty routines take all day. They are not hobbies, they are survival strategies. After your hands have sufficiently soaked, Mary lifts them one by one, drying them with a linen cloth. She presses your fingers gently, almost clinically, assessing the softness. Then she reaches for the next tool, a small dish containing a paste of oats and warm water. Scrub, she instructs. You rub the mixture between your palms. It feels grainy, soft, and oddly comforting. A gentler cousin of the walnut shell exfoliant that tried to end your life a few hours ago. You scrub each finger, focusing on the knuckles where dryness likes to gather. Mary nods approvingly. Good, but do not forget the nails. Of course not. Medieval beauty waits for no detail. She hands you a thin bone tool shaped like a tiny spatula on one end and a narrow pick on the other. You use it to clean beneath the nail edges, sweeping out anything that might hint at domestic tasks. The pick is gentle enough not to harm your nail bed, but firm enough to do its job. You work, carefully, and Mary watches like a supervisor ensuring the harvest is done correctly. Once your nails are clean, Mary opens another pot, this one filled with a mixture of honey, egg white, and crushed calendula. She dips your fingertips into the mixture, coating them lightly. This strengthens them, she explains, and keeps them from splitting. Your fingertips glisten like small candied fruits. Mary ties a scrap of soft linen over them to hold the mixture in place while it dries. You sit there patiently, fingers wrapped like tiny mummies, feeling the sticky warmth seep into your nail beds. Mary's daughter passes by and smirks kindly. "First time?" she asks. You nod. "It gets easier," she says, "once you stop thinking about how strange it is." You appreciate her honesty. You also suspect this is a polite way of saying you look mildly ridiculous. When the wrap is removed, your nails feel smoother, stronger, and lightly scented with calendula. Mary inspects them closely before moving on. Next comes polishing. Medieval nail polish is not glossy, red, or glamorous. It is more like buffing until your nails resemble the smooth surface of river stones. Mary takes out a small leather pad filled with soft sand and beeswax. She grips your wrist gently, pressing the pad to each nail, rubbing in small circles until the nail shines with a natural glow. The sensation is strangely pleasant, rhythmic, soothing, almost hypnotic. A warmth spreads through your fingertips as the friction builds and the wax melts slightly against your nails. Polished nails show neatness, Mary says. Even if you work, this tells people you care for yourself. You glance at your nails, now subtly bright, and feel a small bloom of pride. You could be mistaken for someone who spends her afternoons reading poetry instead of scrubbing hearthstones. But Mary is not finished. She reaches for a small ceramic pot sealed with wax. When she opens it, the scent of crushed rosemary and olive oil rises like a promise. The mixture inside glistens golden. "Hand salve," she says. "It protects from cold and wind." She scoops a small amount onto her fingertips and massages it gently into your hands. The oil is thick but softening, sliding easily across your skin. She rubs your palms, your knuckles, each finger, each joint, working the salve in with slow, expert motions. "This also helps with chapping," she says. "Winter can cut the skin like knives." You believe her. The cold draft seeping through the shutters earlier felt sharp enough to confirm it. While the salve sinks in, Mary pulls out a bowl filled with warm beeswax softened near the hearth. She dips the tips of your fingers into the wax, creating a thin coating that hardens quickly. "These protect the nails during chores," she explains. "They can be peeled away after." You stare at your wax-tipped fingers, marveling at how medieval women invented a proto-version of nail guards centuries before anyone patented such a thing. As the wax hardens, Mary moves on to the final detail, scenting the hands. She grinds dried lavender and rose petals between her fingers, releasing a cloud of fragrance, then rubs the crushed petals across your palms and the backs of your hands. This leaves your skin smelling faintly floral, not overpowering, but warm and soft, like a medieval garden turning toward the sun. Mary steps back, arms crossed, evaluating her work. Your hands look smooth, your nails neat, your fingertips protected, your skin subtly glowing with herbal oil. You are, for all intents and purposes, carrying the hands of a medieval woman who absolutely does not shovel manure. Good, Mary says, but remember, hands tell the truth. Keep them clean, keep them soft, and when you work, she taps your wrist lightly, wear cloth. She brings out a pair of linen hand wraps, thin, soft, slightly frayed at the edges. They tie around the palms and fingers, protecting your hands while still allowing you to grip. She helps you wrap them, adjusting the knot so they won't slip. As she finishes, she gestures to your hands. These, she says, must match your face. If your hands look poor and your face looks noble, people will whisper. That is, in medieval terms, the equivalent of a social death sentence. You nod, flexing your wrapped fingers. They feel strangely elegant, softer, protected, purposeful. Mary leads you back toward the centre of the room. Your face is powdered into paleness, your braids neatly wrapped, your breath sweetened, your body scented with layers of herbs, and now your hands are soft enough to touch a silk veil without snagging it. Which is perfect timing, because Mary glances toward the window and murmurs, "It is nearly midday." You inhale nervously. Midday in medieval England comes with heat, sweat, smoke, and the greatest threat to your carefully curated cleanliness: work. But according to Mary, before you face the world, before you speak to anyone, before you step outside into the sun that wants to ruin every powder on your face, you must understand bathing, she says, and why we do not do it every day. She folds her hands solemnly. Prepare yourself. Bathing is not simple. You swallow. The next trial, perhaps the most misunderstood one, is about to begin. Mary moves with a kind of ceremonial gravity now, as though she's about to induct you into a secret order, which in a way she is. Bathing in medieval England isn't just about cleanliness. It's about time, firewood, fuel, privacy, superstition, and whether or not the entire house feels like cooperating that day. It is an ordeal, an event, a negotiation with the elements, and for most people it is absolutely not a daily pleasure. Sit, Mary says, gesturing toward a large wooden tub pushed against the far wall. It's not filled yet. Right now it's just a dry, creaking reminder of how much effort awaits. Beside it sits a stack of heavy pots, buckets, and a long-handled ladle that looks more like a paddle for disciplining disobedient porridge. You sit on the stool she provides, hands folded neatly. Your newly salved palms glide against each other with surprising softness. Mary nods at your posture. Good. Clean hands even before washing. It shows care. You are beginning to suspect that medieval beauty culture cares more about the idea of cleanliness than the actual reality of it. She kneels beside the tub and taps its wooden rim. This, she says, is why we wash only when needed. She gestures toward the hearth. It's burning steadily now, but the flames are modest, conserving fuel. Every bucket of bath water must be heated over that small hearth. Every log spent must be reasoned with. Every splash must be justified. She points to the ceiling where smoke stains darken the beams. To heat enough water for a full bath, she says, the room becomes smoke-heavy. The fire grows hot, sometimes too hot to sit near, she pauses. And then there is the matter of privacy. Privacy, in this house, is a wool curtain strung loosely along a rope. If anyone walks in unexpectedly, that curtain is the only barrier between you and complete vulnerability. Mary lifts the curtain, letting it drop again with a soft swish. Most families share one room, she explains. Bathing must be planned, coordinated, sometimes delayed until night. You look at the tub again. Suddenly the smell of your herbal wipe down from earlier seems luxurious. Mary leads you closer. But today, she says, you learn how it's truly done. She begins with the first step, fetching water. She hands her daughter a pail. The girl slips out the back door with the weary grace of someone who's made this trip hundreds of times. You hear the faint echo of the well rope spinning, the clank of the bucket dipping. The cold morning air slips inside each time the door opens. When the girl returns, she pours the frigid water into a cauldron above the fire, and the wood beneath crackles with effort. Mary stirs it with the long ladle, testing for warmth. "This will take time," she says. "Water must not scald, but it must not chill." You nod like a nervous apprentice. While the water heats, Mary begins preparing the bathing herbs. She opens a pouch filled with mint, lavender and crushed chamomile. You expect her to toss them into the water once heated, but she does something more medieval. She wraps the herbs in thin linen and then dunks the linen bundle into the water like a teabag for giants. "This softens the bath," she explains. "It calms the skin, hides the scent of smoke and work." She hands you a second bundle, letting you feel its weight. It is fragrant, slightly damp from the mist, and tied tightly so no leaves escape. She tells you to place it on the tub's edge. "When you bathe," she says, "rub the skin with it. Gently." You picture yourself scrubbing your shoulder with a giant herbal dumpling. The image is unexpectedly soothing. While the water continues heating, Mary reaches for a wooden bucket containing last night's leftover warm water. Slightly sooty, slightly used for cooking, slightly everything. In medieval terms, this is precious liquid that must not be wasted. She pours it into the tub. Steam rises faintly. "We layer the water," she says. "Warm on warm. We do not waste heat." Her daughter pours in more fresh water. Mary tests it again. Still cool. We wait. To fill the silence, she explains the bathing customs of the wealthy. Some nobles have dedicated bathhouses within their manors. They import spices, oils, rosewater. They own copper tubs, shaped and polished. They heat entire rooms just for comfort. Servants carry in bucket after bucket, forming a chain that lasts hours. Some even bathe twice a week, she says, with a mix of awe and disbelief. You don't tell her your modern schedule, it feels like bragging. She moves on to ordinary town families, weekly bathing maybe, or fortnightly. Children bathe more, adults less. Winter reduces everything. Water freezes, spirits cool, motivation plummets. A basin wash becomes the norm. And then there are the public bathhouses, steaming, busy, social. More popular earlier in the medieval period, but still present in larger towns. People gather, Mary says, to talk, to rest, to sigh away the cold. But concerns over morality and disease sometimes make bathhouses controversial. No matter where, she finishes, bathing is work. The water finally steams. Mary nods to her daughter, who lifts the cauldron carefully using a cloth-wrapped handle. Together they pour it into the tub, mixing it with the cooler water already inside. You hear the satisfying glug of heat meeting cold. Steam rises gently. "Now," Mary says, "touch it." You dip your hand. It's warm, not hot, not luxurious, but comfortingly warm. The warmth that takes the edge off a winter morning. Mary nods. Good. Enough. She turns her back politely as you step behind the curtain. Her daughter does the same. Privacy is thin, but it exists. You remove your outer layers, careful not to disturb the powder on your face. Medieval bathing is a balancing act. Cleanliness without undoing hours of grooming. You step into the tub. The warmth climbs your legs, your hips, your waist. The water level is shallow, barely enough to reach mid-thigh when you sit. Full immersion is a fantasy for poets and nobles. Mary speaks through the curtain. Use the linen, wipe gently. You rub the herbal bundle along your arms. The warmth softens your skin. Steam curls upward, carrying chamomile into the air. The sensation is deeply pleasant. Gentle strokes, rising heat, the floral scent drifting up into your hair. But the water cools quickly. Mary warns you of this. Move fast. Warm water disappears like gold. You wash your arms, shoulders, neck. You avoid your face religiously. The powder would flee instantly. You wipe your legs, your stomach, your back with careful twists. The water cools even more. Mary's daughter brings another small pail of warmed water and pours it down your back. The warmth rolls over your skin like a blessing. You inhale sharply, grateful. Then the chill returns. This is the pattern. Warm, cooling, cool, almost cold. You learn to appreciate each moment while it lasts. Mary explains from behind the curtain, "This is why we do not bathe daily. The fire burns too quickly, the water cools too fast, the body tires. You understand. Even this small bath has required time, fuel, effort, and coordination. You feel humbled, but clean, fresh, human." When the water finally cools to the point of goosebumps, Mary taps the curtain. "Enough. Step out." You wrap yourself in the linen cloth she provides. It's not soft, but it's warm, and warmth is everything now. She hands you a small bowl of warmed lavender oil. You rub a little onto your arms and legs, noticing how the scent mingles with your earlier herbs. "Never go outside wet," she warns. "Cold steals the breath." She helps you dress again, clean chemise, carefully preserved braids, sachets tucked in all the right places. You feel like you've been rebuilt molecule by molecule. Mary gestures toward your face. "And look, the powder is safe." You grin. You manage to clean your entire body without ruining your medieval makeup. A small miracle. "Remember," Mary says, folding her arms proudly, "bathing is a gift, not a habit." Outside, the midday sun brightens the shutters. People call to one another in the street. Smoke drifts from the bakery chimney. Mary guides you toward the door. "Now that you're clean," she says, "your clothing must finish the work." You take a breath. The next challenge is not just fabric. It's fashion, status, and strategy. The transformation continues. Mary doesn't lead you to a wardrobe. She leads you to a strategy. In medieval England, clothing isn't simply what you wear. It's what people assume about you before you even open your mouth. It's the era's version of a resume, social media profile, character reference, and dating app photo all stitched into one. It enhances the beauty you've painstakingly built all morning, protects your skin from the sun that wants to ruin everything, and broadcasts your status with more ferocity than your pale face ever will. She makes you stand straight while she circles you like a tailor sizing up a client. "Your face is ready," she says. "Your hair is ready. But people will still look at your dress first." She pauses, lowers her voice as though sharing a forbidden truth. "Clothing is beauty." She gestures to a wooden chest near the hearth. The chest is large, dark, iron-bound, and clearly treasured. She lifts the lid, and the scent of old linen, lavender sachets, and time-worn wool rises like a quiet exhale. Inside is not a rainbow. Medieval wardrobes do not do rainbows. You see linens in undyed cream, wools in earthy greens and soft browns, a rich blue garment wrapped carefully in its own cloth like a holy relic, and a muted red that looks like it has stories woven into its seams. Mary pulls out the first layer, a clean linen chemise. It's soft from years of washing, mending, and wearing. She hands it to you and turns her back politely while you slip behind a screen to change. The chemise feels light, airy, smooth, the kind of comfortable you wish every garment in this century could be. Mary nods approvingly when you step back out. "Linen protects the skin," she says, and shows cleanliness. A stained chemise says you do not care. A fresh chemise says you honour your home. She reaches again into the chest and pulls out a kirtle, the foundational gown. Today's choice is a soft, muted green wool. It's sturdy, warm and practical, but the colour is flattering, making your pale complexion look intentional rather than near fainting. Mary helps you step into it. As she laces the sides, she explains the subtle beauty tricks within the clothing itself. "The kirtle draws the waist," she says, tugging gently at the lacing. "It shapes the body even when you have not eaten yet." You realise medieval beauty includes being lightly cinched whether you like it or not. She tightens until you feel supported but not constricted, a balance born from experience. Then she smooths the fabric over your hips and steps back. "See," she says, "already taller, already finer. You do look slightly transformed, and you haven't even seen the outer layer." Mary's daughter brings forward a small wooden box containing pins, not safety pins, not delicate brooches. Sharp, honest-to-goodness metal pins that medieval women use for everything clothing-related, securing necklines, adjusting fit, closing gaps, shaping sleeves. Mary plucks a few and begins refining the neckline of your kirtle, pinning it so it sits just so. She explains in her teaching while working tone, a woman's neckline must be neat, not loose, not crooked. Crooked means careless. Pinned, straightened, smoothed. The neckline now frames the pale upward glow of your powdered face. It is subtle beauty architecture, and Mary treats it with solemn precision. Next comes the gown. She pulls the muted blue garment from the chest with reverent hands. You inhale sharply. The colour is rare, rich, carefully preserved. Mary smiles faintly. Woad died, she says. A blessing from my mother. You wear it with care. She helps you slip it on. The wool is softer than expected, likely brushed and worn into comfort over years. When she fastens the sleeves and smooths the shoulders, you feel the weight of it. Heavy, warm, structured. It tells people you are careful, she explains, that you respect yourself. A gown speaks louder than a voice. She moves behind you and straightens your linen head wrap. Then, unexpectedly, she drapes a veil over it, thin, airy, white. It floats softly around your face, the edges catching light like a halo. The veil is the medieval beauty cheat code. Mary adjusts it gently, her fingers moving with affectionate expertise. This softens the features, she murmurs, hides stray hair, protects the skin, and tells everyone you're respectable. Even poorly braided hair, she says, can be forgiven under a well-pinned veil. A veil keeps smoke from settling into your braids and your face from tanning into scandal. It keeps your carefully shaped eyebrows visible while covering everything else that might betray imperfection. Then she moves on to your waist. Out comes the belt. Not decorative, functional. Wool or leather, sometimes with small tools or pouches attached. But today Mary presents you with one adorned only with a simple bronze buckle. A belt shapes the gown, she says, circling it around your waist. It shows the line of the body and holds what you must carry. She cinches it gently. Your silhouette sharpens. Waist defined, fabric falling gracefully. Your proportions now match the medieval ideal. Long lines, modest curves, and a sense of quiet order. She steps back again, assessing you the way an artist studies a nearly finished painting, but she isn't done yet. She turns to a basket beside the chest and pulls out a soft woolen shawl, a muted red, worn at the edges, warm, comforting. For the shoulders, she says, it protects your gown and adds colour to the face. She drapes it around you, pinning one end so it rests gracefully along your collarbone. Instantly, the cool pale tones of your complexion balance against the warm red of the shawl. Your medieval contouring is complete. Mary smiles. Colour is beauty, she says, but too much colour is pride. Everything is aligned to walk. She guides you to the mirror again, the slightly warped metal disc leaning against the window. You study your reflection. Even distorted, you can see the changes. The pale, refined complexion. The neatly shaped brows, the smoothed braids beneath the veil, the gown that shapes rather than hides, the shawl warming the whole look, the subtle scent drifting from your sleeves. You no longer look like someone passing through 1387. You look like someone belonging to 1387. Mary nods once, satisfied. Now, she says, you look ready for the day. But she reaches into the chest one last time and pulls out a pair of soft wool stockings and leather shoes with simple laces. Beauty ends at the feet, she warns, and begins there too. Her daughter kneels to help you, tying the laces neatly. The shoes are stiff but sturdy. The stockings warm your legs instantly. Once fully dressed, Mary circles you again with slow approval. Clothing shapes the body, she says, but it also protects the work you have done. She gestures to the door. Now people will believe you are well kept. You straighten instinctively, not from vanity, but from the quiet knowledge that a medieval woman's beauty is never only her face. It is her bearing, her layers, her fabrics, her scent, her posture, her presentation. Clothing completes the transformation, and just as you exhale, thinking perhaps this marks a moment of rest, Mary lifts a finger. Before you step outside, she says, you must learn how the seasons change everything. Here it comes. The next lesson is not a routine. It is survival. Mary moves toward the small window, lifts the shutter with the back of her knuckles and lets a thin blade of cold air slice into the room. You feel it instantly. Sharp, metallic, honest. It cuts through the warmth of the hearth and raises goosebumps beneath your gown. Mary doesn't flinch. She simply watches the light, the clouds, the thin frost clinging to the edge of the glass. This, she says, changes everything. And just like that, you understand. Medieval beauty isn't one set of rules. It's 16, one for each season, one for each kind of storm, one for whatever England decides to throw at you that week. Weather isn't a backdrop here, it's an opponent. Mary gestures for you to step closer. You do, feeling the draft slip under your shawl. She holds your hand toward the air outside. If you step out like this in winter, she says, your skin will crack before you reach the baker. You blink. Crack. She nods. Cold steals moisture. Wind steals warmth. Snow steals colour. She taps your cheek. Your beauty routine must meet the season. And thus begins the lesson. Winter, the season of survival. Mary pulls a small pot from a shelf. A different one than the goose fat and beeswax mixture that assaulted your dignity this morning. This one is thicker, darker, faintly golden. She lifts the lid, revealing a salve made of tallow, resin, and honey. In winter, she says, you use more fat. You try not to recoil. More fat on your carefully powdered face. She smirks, reading your horror perfectly. Not on the face, on the hands, the feet, the neck. The wind finds weakness there. She dips 2 fingers in the salve and rubs a thin layer along the inside of your wrists, then along the base of your neck. The warmth of your skin melts the mixture, releasing a faint hint of pine. Winter requires sealing, she explains. Everything must be guarded. Then she reaches for a darker cloth, a hooded cowl lined with rabbit fur. She pulls it over your shoulders and head, tucking it gently around your veil. This protects your hair, she says, and keeps frost from turning your braids to rope. She lifts your hands and examines them again. Linen wraps are not enough in winter. She opens another drawer and removes woolen mitts, fingerless but warm. She slips them over your hands, you flex your fingers. The warmth blooms immediately. Winter beauty, Mary says, is not softness. It is endurance. She closes the shutter with a firm hand. Spring, the season of risk. She moves to the table and changes tools as seamlessly as flipping a page. Out come herbs, greens, yellows, petals that smell newly alive. Spring tricks women, Mary says. It warms, then freezes. It dries, then rains. It tests your habits. She picks up a pot of thick green paste, made of parsley, mint and vinegar. She taps it. For spots. Spring brings dampness. Dampness brings blemishes. She sets the paste aside and gathers a bowl of rosewater. Spring is for refreshing, she says. After winter layers, the skin wakes, and you must help it. She dabs the rosewater lightly along your jawline, showing how to apply it without disturbing your powder. The scent is subtle, a ghost of petals. Too much sun in spring burns worse than summer, she adds. Never go outside without your veil. You nod. Your veil is now your best friend. Mary's daughter interrupts briefly to place fresh herbs on the table. Mary lifts a sprig of rosemary and lays it across your palm. In spring, she says, you carry this. It keeps away illness. People sneeze more, cough more, you protect your breath. And suddenly spring feels less like blossoming flowers and more like medieval allergy season with high stakes. Summer, the season of trouble. Mary opens the shutter fully this time. not to let in cold, but to demonstrate brightness. Sun floods the room, landing on your gown, your braid, your pale, carefully powdered cheek. Mary points at the sunbeam. That, she says, is your enemy. Summer is brutal here. Not tropical brutal, medieval brutal. Sweat ruins powder. Heat melts oils. Sun darkens the face. And darkening your face in this society is a scandal with consequences. She retrieves a small pot of very fine flour, almost silky. Summer powder, she says. It absorbs sweat. She pats a bit onto your palm to show how it glides. Then she reaches for a larger scarf, light but wide, and wraps it elegantly around your head and shoulders. In summer, she says, you shade everything. If you walk in sun, walk quickly. If you rest in shadows. She pulls another pot forward, a paste of violet petals mixed with goat's milk. This soothes sun heat, she explains. Apply at night, never during the day. Finally, she taps the bridge of your nose gently. Summer brings freckles. Some say they are charming, but fashion says they are careless. You swallow, instinctively covering your nose. Mary chuckles. Do not fear, we bleach them. Bleach? She holds up a pot of lemon and ash paste. It lightens them, she says, gently, if done weakly. Gently is doing a lot of work in that sentence. Autumn, the season of preparation. Mary moves to the hearth, where herbs hang drying. The room smells of smoke, dust, and fading leaves. She pulls down bundles of sage, lavender, and rue. Autumn, she says, is for storing beauty. You blink. Storing beauty? She nods. You make oils, salves, powders, everything for winter, everything for spring. She hands you a small linen pouch filled with dried lavender buds. This will scent your clothes, she says, and keep moths from chewing holes through your kirtle. She dips a sprig of rue into warm water and flicks droplets on your shoes. Autumn rains ruin leather, she says. This protects it. Then she demonstrates how to oil your braids lightly with almond oil, not for shine, but for insulation. Cold winds begin early, she says. Your hair must be ready. Finally, she adds one last reminder. Autumn beauty is quiet. People watch how you prepare. It says if you are wise. You suddenly feel as though failing to prepare salves is the medieval equivalent of being roasted on social media. The Weather Bible. One rule. Per sky. A sudden gust rattles the shutters. Mary glances at the ceiling. Weather, she says simply, commands everything. She recites rules the way monks recite scripture. If it rains, keep your veil under your hood. Wet linen shows shape, and shape invites gossip. If it snows, powder your face after wrapping your scarf, or the snow will cling to your cheeks and reveal every flaking edge. If it hails, do not go outside at all. Hail ruins beauty, she says, and sometimes foreheads. If it's windy, oil your braids twice. Wind tangles hair faster than hands can fix. If it's humid, avoid heavy powders. They turn to paste. Use dry chalk instead. If it's foggy, carry rosemary. Fog absorbs into clothing and leaves a sour smell. If it's hot, walk with a cloth under your arms to prevent sweat marks on your gown. If it's cold, breathe into your veil. Cold air stiffens the lips and cracks them. She hands you a tiny pot of beeswax tinted with rose. This is for lips, she says. Use it when the air fights you. You open it. The scent is soft, sweet, calming. Mary looks at you with quiet seriousness. A woman must know the weather, she says. It decides how she'll be seen. She closes the shutter and ties the latch. You look at her, at the layers of salves, powders, scarves, oils, herbs, and strategies she has woven into one coherent survival plan, and you realize the truth. Medieval beauty is not vanity. It is engineering. It is navigation. It is defense. Mary smooths your shawl one final time. Now, she says, you understand the seasons. She turns toward the door. And now you will learn the most dangerous part of all. Her voice drops. What people think of you. Your stomach tightens. The next trial isn't physical, it's social. You barely take 3 steps toward the door before Mary pauses, hand hovering over the wooden latch, listening to the sounds outside like a field commander assessing battlefield conditions. The muffled chatter of neighbours, the rattle of a passing cart, a child shrieking after dropping something, a dog barking because dogs in every century overreact, all drift through the cracks in the shutters. Mary turns back to you with a look that is both warning and weary wisdom. Everything you have done today, she says, means nothing if you do not understand how people will look at you. You blink, unsure whether to feel offended, terrified, or both. But she's right. In medieval England, beauty isn't finished when the grooming ends. Beauty is performed, interpreted, judged, whispered about. It lives in the minds and mouths of the people around you just as much as on your skin. Mary pushes the latch open and steps outside into the narrow street. You follow, adjusting your shawl, veil, and hood with the automatic caution she has drilled into you. The sunlight reflects softly off your powdered face, and your braids sit neatly under your veil, scented sachets tucked discreetly beneath your gown. The town is awake now, really awake. Not the gentle morning hum you heard earlier. This is the full, bustling orchestration of medieval life. Vendors shouting, chickens scattering, the smell of bread mixing with the scent of fish, manure, hot iron, and humanity doing its messy best. And under that, conversation, observation, evaluation. Mary motions for you to stand beside her, just to watch for a moment. Look how they see one another, she says. Look how fast the eyes judge. You do? A woman passes carrying a basket of apples, cheeks flushed pink from the cold. Her scarf is slightly askew, and Mary murmurs, "She rose late. Someone will comment." Another woman hurries by with a toddler on her hip. Her hair sticks out from beneath her veil in chaotic curls. Mary clicks her tongue. People will say she neglects her grooming. Then a merchant's wife strolls past in a carefully pinned veil and a clean blue gown. Mary tilts her chin. They will gossip about how she uses too much. Powder. The pattern is unmistakable. No one escapes the commentary. Beauty here is not a quiet, private subject. It is public property, an endless conversation you do not necessarily participate in, but absolutely star in. Mary gestures for you to follow her through the street. As you walk, she speaks softly, narrating the invisible social mechanics around you. Men see beauty differently, she says. They notice the glow of the skin, the neatness of the hair, the sweetness of the breath. They make judgments quickly about health, fertility, worth. You swallow. That's heavy. But women see details, she continues. They see whether the veil is pinned properly. They see if the hands look softened or roughened by chores. They see if the complexion is even or if a blemish has been hidden poorly. She glances at your face and gives a rare small smile. Yours is well done. You try to accept the compliment, but a flicker of anxiety drifts across your chest. Because Mary is right. People are looking. A pair of women at a nearby stall glance at you, then whisper to each other with the practiced subtlety of people who have been gossiping since birth. You don't hear the words, but you recognize the tone. Who is she? Where is she from? Does she think she's noble? Before panic can bloom, Mary touches your arm. Hold your shoulders straight, she murmurs. You adjust. Walk calmly, she adds. Not fast, not slow. A well-kept woman moves with purpose. You shift your pace. This is not simple walking. This is presentation. This is strategy. This is your body communicating things you didn't know bodies could communicate. Mary continues her quiet lesson as you stroll the lane. People judge a woman's beauty by her posture. If she slouches, they say she's tired or ill. If she lifts her chin too high, they say she's proud. She nudges your elbow lightly. Keep it soft, not weak, not sharp, just soft. You adjust again. You're beginning to feel like a medieval marionette, guided by invisible social strings. A moment later, Mary nods toward a cluster of older women gathered near a well. Their veils are crisp, their shawls neatly arranged, their hands folded. These are the neighbourhood's social judges, the women who know everyone's business and pass verdicts as healthily as they pass bread. Mary stands just close enough for you to listen without being drawn into their conversation. She came out with damp hair yesterday, one says flatly. Imagine the shame. Another clucks her tongue. If she gets sick, it is her own fault. A third shakes her head at a young girl walking by with flushed cheeks. She should not run. Colour does not suit her. You lean closer to Mary and whisper, "Do they always judge everything?" Mary gives you a look that carries 16 lifetimes of resignation. They judge because it gives them power, and because everyone listens. She's not wrong. The social hierarchy here is not built only on wealth or land. It's built on appearance, behaviour, grooming, modesty, and reputation. Beauty, or the lack of it, can elevate or destroy. And gossip spreads fast, Mary adds. Even truth spreads slower. She gestures toward a woman down the street whose veil is pinned slightly unevenly. Already 2 young wives have noticed. One whispers to the other, hiding a laugh behind her hand. That's all it takes, Mary says. One misstep. You start to feel your shoulders tense. Too tense. Mary immediately taps your back. Relax the shoulders. You relax. Not that much. You adjust. She nods, satisfied. You continue walking to the market square where the social pressure only intensifies. Every stall is a stage. Every buyer and seller an audience. Every movement a performance. Mary leads you toward a table of woolen goods, pretending to examine a scarf while quietly pointing out behaviours. "That one," she whispers, nodding toward a young woman in a lovely red kirtle. Or too much scent. People think she's trying to hide something. "That one," she murmurs, pointing to a girl chatting with a friend. "Laughs too loudly. They will say she's bold." "And that one..." Mary's voice fades slightly as she gestures toward a woman walking past with perfectly pinned hair and a carefully powdered face. She works hard to be seen as poised, but people will whisper that she woke too early and worked too long on her appearance. You stare wide-eyed. So, no matter what you do, people will criticize. Mary laughs. A warm, soft sound carrying a hint of sadness. Of course, that is how society works. She lifts your chin lightly, gently, as if adjusting the final detail of your daily presentation. But you must learn how to protect yourself. "How?" you whisper. She counts on her fingers. Keep your veil straight. Keep your hands soft. Keep your voice gentle. Keep your shawl neat. Keep your face calm. And above all, she leans in, never let them see your panic. You take a slow breath. She places a hand between your shoulder blades, guiding you into the flow of people as though leading you into a river. The social currents swirl instantly. Some women glance at your gown. Some glance at your complexion. Some at your hair. Some at your shoes. Some at your hands. Some at everything at once. A butcher's wife looks you over with the cold efficiency of someone who has opinions about everyone's linen. A baker's apprentice gives you a quick, flattering once-over before his mother smacks his arm. A noblewoman passing through the market barely acknowledges you, but her maid studies the detail of your shawl stitching with interest. Every gaze feels like a tiny poke. Mary walks just slightly behind you, close enough to intervene if needed, but far enough that you are the one being seen. "Good," she whispers. "Keep your chin relaxed." You do. "Good. Walk softer, step from the heel." You do. "Good. Eyes down, but not too far." You adjust. "Good," she says. "Now you are invisible and visible at the same time." "Wait, what?" Mary nods at your confusion. A well-kept woman blends in. She's admired but not loud, not flashy, not sloppy. People see her and think, "She is proper," and then they move on. You understand. Medieval beauty isn't about shining. It's about not giving anyone ammunition. Mary leads you back toward the quieter alleyways, away from the thickest crowds. Her steps slow as the noise fades behind you. "This," she says softly, "is the truth. You can scrub and pluck and powder and perfume yourself all morning, but if you do not know how to live inside people's expectations, the work is wasted." She rests a hand on your shoulder, gentle, reassuring. "You have done well today." You feel a small warmth bloom in your chest, but Mary's expression shifts. And now, she says quietly, you must learn the cost of all this. She motions for you to follow her back inside the house. The beauty, she whispers, comes with dangers. Your heart skips. The next lesson is not about routine. It is about risk. Mary closes the door behind you with a slow, deliberate push, as though shutting out not just the cold, but the entire buzzing, judgment-filled world outside. The room feels quieter than before, heavier, the kind of quiet that settles before a difficult truth. The fire crackles in the hearth, but even the flames seem to hush themselves, shrinking low as Mary turns toward you with a look that is no longer instructional, no longer corrective, no longer gently amused. This look is warning. You have learned the work of beauty, she says softly. Now you must learn its dangers. She motions for you to sit at the table, the same place where you were exfoliated within an inch of your life hours ago. You lower yourself carefully, your gown rustling, your shawl settling politely into place, your veil brushing your shoulders like a reminder of everything you've endured. Mary sits across from you, folding her hands slowly, a gesture filled with quiet gravity. Her daughter lingers near the hearth, pretending to stir the pot but really listening closely. This lesson is the sort whispered between generations, handed down like a warning bell. Mary begins where all danger begins, the ingredients. You felt it, didn't you, she says. The sting of the powders, the burn of the vinegar, the tightening of the lead paste. She touches a small pot on the table, the bright shimmering mixture she used sparingly on. Your cheekbones earlier. In the sunlight it glints like tiny stars. In reality it is poison wearing makeup. Some women use too much, Mary says quietly. They want the shine, the brightness. They think more makes them beautiful. She lifts the pot and sets it down sharply. More makes them sick. You feel the air shift. She's not speaking metaphorically. She lists the symptoms in a low voice. Headaches, trembling hands, grey skin, weakness that creeps up slowly until a woman cannot lift her arms to pluck her eyebrows. Some women lose hair, some lose colour, some lose years. And people do not understand why, Mary adds. They blame spirits, curses, illness, but often it is their own beauty. You glance toward your reflection in the warped metal mirror. The faint shimmer at your cheekbone suddenly feels heavier, like borrowed light sitting on borrowed time. Mary moves on. Then there is the plucking, she says, tapping your freshly shaped brows. It can cause fever if done too deep, infection. I have seen women lose half their eyebrow to rot. I have seen the skin swell until they cannot open their eyes. You swallow hard. The tweezers earlier felt sharp but harmless. Now you imagine them slipping, tearing, inviting a sickness that medieval medicine cannot fight. Mary's daughter demonstrates by holding up a tiny pot of honey and herbs, a salve for healing. We use this when someone plucks too much, she says, but it does not always help. Then Mary lifts the pumice stone, the one she scraped across your forehead to smooth stray hairs. This too can cut the skin, she warns, and if dirt enters the cut, she doesn't finish. She doesn't need to. You think of infection, fever, the stories you've heard of medieval wounds that turn dangerous overnight. But the risks aren't only physical. Mary leans in. You feel it already, don't you? The watching. You do. The eyes at the market, the whispers at the well, the judgments that slide across cobblestone streets like smoke. Mary continues. If a woman uses too much powder, she is vain. If she uses too little, she is careless. If she plucks too finely, she is prideful. If she leaves her brows wild, she is slovenly. Every choice has weight. Her voice softens. You cannot win. She explains that even scent, the careful layering of herbs, oils, sachets, can be held against you. Too fragrant, suspicious, too plain, unkempt, smelling of smoke, lazy, smelling of mint and lavender, trying too hard. And your hands, she says, touching your wrist gently. If they are too soft, people say you avoid work. If they are rough, they say you lack discipline. It's exhausting, and Mary knows it. Beauty here, she says, is a balance, a tightrope. A woman walks it every day, and every day someone shakes the rope. She stands and moves to the hearth, taking down a bundle of herbs, rue, sage, lavender. She crushes a few leaves between her fingers, letting the scent drift toward you. These keep you clean, she says, but they also reveal your class. She explains how certain fragrances are associated with wealth, spices like cinnamon, exotic oils, expensive rosewater. A woman wearing those scents risks being seen as pretentious. A woman not wearing enough scent risks being seen as unclean. It is a social puzzle with no correct answer. Then come the dangers of hair. Mary touches the fabric covering her own braids. Some women pull their braids too tight. It causes headaches so fierce they cannot stand. Others sleep with hair still wet and the cold creeps into their scalp. Illness comes. She describes ailments modern medicine erased long ago. Scalp fevers, fungal infections, sores hidden beneath veils. Then she gestures toward the fire, and always the danger of the hearth. A loose veil, a falling spark. Burned hair smells worse than anything, and people will talk about it for weeks. You try not to imagine your veil catching fire like a lantern wick. Mary sits again, folding her arms. But the greatest danger of all, she says quietly, is exhaustion. Her daughter nods softly. Women grow tired, she murmurs. Always tired. Mary continues. Up before the sun to wash the face, shape the brows, braid the hair, soften the hands, scent the gown, and at night, undo it all, wash again, wrap the hair, tend the skin, mop away the day's smoke. She looks at you with something like sympathy. Some women lose themselves. They spend so long trying to keep up that they no longer know what is theirs and what is expected. Silence settles between you. You think about the morning, the scrubbing, the plucking, the powders, the scents, the clothes shaped to look effortless, the postures shaped to look modest. You think of the women at the well, the market, the stalls, all walking carefully between judgment and survival. And you feel it in your chest, a heaviness, a fatigue that belongs not just to you, but to every medieval woman who woke each day to this endless invisible labour. Mary reaches across the table to take your hand, her voice softening again. Beauty costs. It always costs. Her fingers brush yours gently. But there is still one more part, she says, the end of the day, the release, the moment when no one is watching. Her eyes warm, and that is when the danger passes, when beauty becomes rest. She squeezes your hand gently. The night ritual, she whispers, is your refuge. You inhale slowly, feeling the tension in your shoulders begin to unwind. The final lesson, she says, rising to prepare the tools, is softer than the others. Outside the day grows dim. The light softens, the world settles, and Mary's voice lowers to a calming hush. It is time, she says, to learn how to end the day. The last light of the day slips into the cracks of Mary's timber-framed house as she closes the shutters against the creeping cold. The air inside grows still, warm, and lightly scented with rosemary from the bundles drying near the hearth. You feel the shift instantly, the way the room exhales, the way chores soften into murmurs, the way the whole house seems to settle into its bones. Mary gives you a nod toward the stool by the fire. The day has judged you enough, she says quietly. Now we undo it. You sit, gown rustling softly, shawl warming your shoulders, veil still pinned in place like a fragile promise. Your body aches faintly, not painfully, just honestly. After a day spent maintaining an appearance the world demanded long before you stepped into it, Mary kneels behind you and begins with your veil. She slides her fingertips under the edge, feeling for the pins with the deftness of someone who has removed thousands. Each pin slides free with a tiny metallic whisper. Your scalp, still tightly bound beneath the linen wrap, sighs with anticipation. Hold still, she murmurs. You stay as still as cooling embers. The veil lifts away, feather-light. Beneath it your linen head wrap lies neat and firm. Mary unknots it slowly, letting the fabric loosen from your braids. Cool air slides across your scalp and you breathe deeper as the pressure eases. The day presses the head, she says, setting the wrap aside. The night must unpress it. She picks up a small wooden comb, carved smooth from years of use. The teeth glide gently across your scalp as she traces the first braid. She unravels it with slow precision, letting the strands spill loose over your shoulders. The faint scent of rosemary, mint, and the perfumed oil you applied this morning escapes into the air. Mary hums softly. Not a song with words, but the kind of tune a mother passes to her daughter without realizing she's doing it. Her daughter joins her, preparing a small basin of warm water and placing it by your feet. The warmth drifts upward in lazy curls of steam. The second braid comes undone, loosening into waves. Mary sets the comb down and begins brushing your hair with long, careful strokes. Each stroke draws the day out, the tension, the stiffness, the lingering self-consciousness from all those eyes at the market. Bit by bit, you slip back into yourself. This, she says, is the part no one sees, and that is why it matters. She gently parts your hair with her fingers and massages along your scalp with warm oil. Not enough to leave it greasy, just enough to soothe. The oil smells of chamomile and rosemary. Her fingers trace slow circles, and the warmth sinks deep into your skin. You close your eyes. Do not sleep yet, Mary says softly. We are not finished. Reluctantly, you open your eyes again. Mary's daughter brings a cloth dampened with warm water. She hands it to you with a shy smile. For the face, she says, but only lightly. The day's powders have settled into your skin. Some clung bravely, some fled at the first sign of sweat. Now Mary shows you how to remove them without disturbing your complexion or angering your pores. You dab, not wipe, along your jawline, your temples, the sides of your nose. The warmth melts powder into softness. Night is for healing, Mary says. We do not strip the skin, we calm it. She offers you a bowl of warm goat's milk mixed with crushed violet petals. The scent is gentle, sweet, faintly floral. You soak a linen cloth in it and press it to your cheeks. The heat relaxes the tightness left over from the morning's chalks and pastes. Then Mary takes the cloth and repeats the ritual, her touch feather-light. The face works hard, she murmurs. Give it rest. She pats your skin dry with a clean scrap of linen and applies a thin layer of honey salve to your cheeks and forehead. Just a whisper of shine, enough to soften the skin overnight. The salve warms under your touch. Your eyebrows, still perfectly shaped from this morning, are brushed through with her fingertip. Never sleep with stress in the brow, she says. It invites lines. You smooth them obediently. Mary gestures for her daughter to fetch the next bowl, one filled with warm rosemary water. You dip your hands in, feeling the day's dust dissolve instantly. She rubs a softening paste, oats and lavender, into your palms and along each finger. Your hands, wrapped earlier in linen and wool, now relax fully. Your nails are cleaned once more, but gently this time. No bone powder, no rough scraping. Just the quiet, soothing touch of someone who knows the day has been long. Mary dries your hands and massages a mixture of almond oil and mint into your fingers. The hands tell the story of the day, she says, but they do not need to take it into the night. You flex your fingers, feeling warmth radiate through your wrists. Next comes the breath. Tooth powder would be too harsh at bedtime, so Mary offers you a sprig of mint to chew and a sip of warm herb water. The mint clears your mouth, the herbs settle your chest. This is not for beauty now. It is for comfort, and finally, your clothing. Mary helps you unlace your gown, careful not to tug or wrinkle the wool. She folds it neatly and sets it aside. The kirtle follows, then the chemise is smoothed, freshened, and adjusted for sleep. You feel lighter with each layer removed, as though stepping out of the expectation stitched into the fabric. The room grows quieter as Mary dims the fire. Her daughter lays fresh straw under the bedding and smooths it flat. A soft wool blanket is draped beside it, warmed near the hearth. Mary leads you to your place by the bed. Her voice softens to a hush. Now begins the wind down, she says. She combs your loosened hair one final time, each stroke slower than the last, as if brushing the day out strand by strand. Your shoulders sink. Your breathing deepens. She dims the single candle, leaving the room bathed in shadows that sway gently with the flicker of the hearth's last glow. Her daughter places a warm stone wrapped in cloth near your feet in the bedding. "To keep you warm," she whispers, "and to keep dreams kind." Mary tucks a lavender sachet near your pillow. "For the mind," she murmurs. "It calms the thoughts." You settle onto the straw-stuffed mattress. The wool blanket drapes over you like a soft weight. Your body feels warm, clean, and pleasantly heavy, the kind of heaviness that comes not from exhaustion, but from returning to yourself after being stretched thin by the world. Your hair spills around your shoulders in waves, smelling faintly of rosemary and chamomile. Your hands rest softly on your stomach, warm from the oils. Your face, freed from the stiff powders of the day, feels softer, cooler, gentler. Mary kneels beside you for a moment. "You survived the day," she says, "and that is the true beauty, not the powders, not the scents, not the braids, the surviving." Her voice lowers to a whisper. "Let the night restore you." The room grows still. The fire quiets into glowing embers. The air thickens with lavender and warmth. Your body sinks deeper into rest. Outside, the town settles into darkness. Inside, you drift on the soft rhythm of your own breath, and the long medieval day, with all its routines, expectations, judgments, and rituals, finally loosens its grip. You let go, slowly, gently, completely.